The following is a presentation of the Radio Misfits Podcast Network.
From the birthplace of modern winemaking, Sonoma, California, welcome to The Winemakers. Local experts Sam Couturi, Bart Hansen, and Brian Casey, along with host John Myers, invite you to listen in as they discuss all facets of winemaking. So sit back, pour yourself a glass, and let's hear what the guys have to say this week.
There you are. Got to turn you up on the pour, man.
Did that sound like Moon Mountain District?
It did, absolutely.
It sounded like
I think I'm back
the
in
low
France.
pH of the high-heeled, the high elevation Sauvignon Blanc.
I like
the
it.
low spark of the high-heeled boys.
Hey, welcome, everybody. Welcome to the Winemakers. I'm John Myers with Sam Couturi and Danielle Langlois.
Hello.
Winemaker from Lasseter. Thank you for this Sauvignon Blanc. It's beautiful today.
You're welcome.
I like it. Perfect temperature. Christophe Tassan. Welcome. Well,
Christophe.
You're making me feel like I'm back in France, man. I like it.
We have, our French contingent. Although I guess, do you consider yourself French?
Yes.
Yes.
American French.
American French. We have our French contingent to talk about the Moon Mountain District.
Where do you have French in your background?
My
Langlois?
father is French. He immigrated to the United States in the 1960s from Guadeloupe in the French West Indies.
Yeah.
And he loved it and stayed.
He loved it and stayed.
How did you get to California?
I was at a crossroads in my life. I was studying chemistry, doing all the crazy stuff, TAing, grading papers, anything to get through.
You were going to be a professor. You were on the
I was going to go get my
academic track.
Yeah,
I didn't know that.
for environmental chemistry, and I was kind of just bogged down, and I called him and was complaining about it, and he had been trying to convince me to make wine for years because he, is my father and he knows me well. And he was like, you like wine, you love socializing, you love travel, you work hard, you're not supposed to be behind a desk. So, at that point I was like, you know what, I'm going to go give it a shot. And I came out here and...
Where were you?
I was in Colorado at the time.
Oh, okay. Excellent.
And I absolutely loved it. I did my first harvest with Cayman Wines, working under Mark Harold and Katie Wilson. And, was it hard? Absolutely. But it was definitely for me. So that was in 2013. So been out here for almost 11 years.
Wow.
Yeah.
Enjoy.
Yeah.
Beautiful thing. How did you get with Lasseter?
So I worked for Phil Couturi. I don't know if you guys know about him.
I've never heard of him.
First time mentioned on this podcast.
I read an article once about him.
Maybe a blurb here or there.
Vineyard intern for him for 2 years, just because I wanted to get kind of a full picture of what's happening with every stage of the grapes. And so I got to work for him, and I kind of let it be known that I was looking to be an assistant winemaker. Winemaker was my, 5 to 10 year plan. And so when the Lasseters were interested in hiring an assistant winemaker, he put me up for the job.
Perfect. Wow. It's a nice connection, isn't it?
Absolutely.
And the rest is history.
And the rest is history.
We should, one of these days, Phil Couturi will get his due credit on this show.
We talk about him like he's a scoundrel.
Well, only when he's not here.
I think on my personal labels, I say the infamous Phil Couturi.
The infamous Phil Couturi.
I
Yeah.
like
Asked him if that was okay, and he laughed.
And
said, fine.
Of course.
It's inarguable. It's inarguable. Christophe, how did you make it to the Moon Mountain District?
I'm thinking of Phil and a lot of things. He's the dirt wizard.
The dirt wizard, yeah. The wizard of something.
So wine brought me here in a funny way, and amazing way, and fascinating. It's all a journey and a pleasure be around wine. I can say that I'm pretty fortunate and lucky to study wine when I was at the restaurant school. So I graduated wine school in 1983. I worked in a family restaurant in Avignon. So yes, I kind of have I had Grenache in my baby bottle. So that now that that set you up for the whole future.
Build strong bones, right?
They do. Then I landed in Philadelphia first, still in a restaurant for the famous chef Georges Perrier at Le Bec Fin. Then moved to with the chef Alain Ducasse to Las Vegas, and then I was rescued from Vegas by the Birch family. The Birch family who owns actually this Moon Hollow estate in Moon Mountain District. So I said I had my purgatory path to heaven. On pouring wines in dining room for decades, and now I manage the program at the Battery, the club. But I'm now overviewing the production of the 20 acres vineyard in Moon Mountain for Moon Hollow, and that the guy that you just mentioned, the name that nobody knows, Phil Couture, he replanted the vineyard for the family I work for in 2012. So the journey is absolutely fantastic. And you said to start, say, oh, now with your accent and bonjour, I feel like I'm back in France. So you make me feel now like a great wine, because a great wine is reawakening your memories, and you visited a place, and now you go back to the place. So probably, to me, a bottle of wine is a postcard with a taste. So
I like it.
Now,
I like it.
Let's talk about Moon Mountain.
I've heard bottled poetry.
John, don't let Christophe undersell his credentials here. I mean, we let Le Bec Fin and Alain Ducasse slide by without any acknowledged dings. Christophe, before you, because I was enthralled and enraptured by being returned to France. You are, I never say it right, so I just use the initials. You are sommelier MOF. And was that, this is, and that's
so describe that level.
It's essentially.
You can be a somm, you can be a master somm.
And MOF, it's specifically in France. It's a medal from the French government, right?
Yes.
That is awarded, I guess, on an annual basis, I don't know, to the highest quality tradespeople or craftspeople in their jobs. So this morning I ordered barrels from an MOF cooperage in Burgundy. Christophe was recognized by the French government as the best sommelier, one of the best sommeliers in France. Is that he's blushing.
Meilleur ouvrier de France is that a recognition that establish that you carry the legacy of your craft. So that now you can teach, you can pass it along, you can carry it. You know what the ancient has done, you know what the industry is, and you have to do it. And of course, the restaurant industry is well known on MOF with the chef, the pastry, the charcuterie. So then the sommelier came later on than when it started in 1926. But yes, I competed. It took a little over 12 years for me to succeed. But yes, I.
And is that before you came to the United States?
Yes, right before.
Okay.
Well, so if you can't guess by now, we're talking about Moon Mountain today, right?
That's what we're here for.
Moon Mountain AVA.
Moon Mountain District.
Still the newest AVA.
Ahead of...
what's going on? She's pantomiming. Anyway.
Carry on while I talk to my mother for a second.
Moon Mountain. I'll turn you off, Sam. What a great place. I mean, first of all, it's beautiful. And you said 20 acres that you work with. How many acres are in the Moon Mountain AVA?
Moon Mountain AVA is, Moon Mountain District is about 1,500 planted acres. That may have gone up a little bit since we, kind of established those, those facts in 2013. And so, give or take 1,500 acres. If it's gone up, not a lot. There's not a whole lot of plantable land
it's not
left.
No subdivision.
It's 15,000 acres total land mass. So you're talking about, the western front of the Mayacamas Mountains as it overlooks Sonoma Valley. So if you're standing on the plaza, you can't see the north end of it, but you can see the south end of it. It's basically like above Gunlock Bunchu to the to the east, and runs the ridgeline. He's going inside. Runs the ridgeline, basically to Sugarloaf Mountain above Kenwood in the north.
Okay.
So there's a lot of land mass, relatively speaking, although much smaller than a lot of appellations in the world. But really, 10% of which is grapes.
Did
and
you
candy
look up
grapes.
an answer?
No, I did not.
What were you looking at?
I was confirming how much acreage Lasseter had at Trinity
Did you not get it?
on the Moon Mountain. Huh?
I wonder if I have that somewhere. I have a lot of the maps of stuff that 16600 sources from, but previous to the Lasseter's owning that property, I always wanted the Syrah and couldn't get it, and now I can never get it. So I don't have that map in my email to pull up. It's probably a 20-acre vineyard also.
No, it's 9 acres.
Oh, it's 9 acres. Okay.
Yeah.
How many different wineries sourced from Moon Mountain? And who was the first? Was it Uncle Bobby up there?
Well, if you want to say the first was, historically, Monte Rosso.
So, yeah.
Before Cayman was planted, there was Monticello Vineyard, Nuns Canyon, now owned by Stewart Cellars, Blair Guthrie, who will be at the tasting, and then maybe it comes to Carmenet, which is now Repris. Might have been historically sort of in the second or third or fourth place position there in the early 80s, and then Cayman and a few others, and then the rest of them have been in that last 30 years or so.
Well,
I guess.
What about the vineyard that Kistler's been getting their Chardonnay from?
That's been since like the early 80s also, probably.
Okay.
That's kind of when you think about like the history of California viticulture in general is after the Judgment of Paris, and I don't know if you saw, total sidebar, Patrick Cappiello's proposed a new Judgment of Paris on his Instagram today, so we'll be following that as it progresses. Total sidebar, but if you think of after the Judgment of Paris, there was money in investing in new California vineyards in places that were expensive to farm and develop. So that would be, everywhere in the Moon Mountain District.
Yeah.
As people who work for people who have to pay for farming and developing vineyards in the Moon Mountain District, it's not easy, right? But it's worth it, right? I mean, that's why we're here. Is it worth it?
I would say it's worth it. Yeah, I would say.
Okay.
On the anteriority of production, on my lucky side of the sommelier and the dining room, I had not more than 10 years ago, Hansel Pinot Noir, 1969.
Oh, right, Hansel. That's a big fucking admission.
It's a mountain wine, and I had as well Louis Martini, Mountain Fruit. Mountain Fruit,
right.
1959.
Wow.
I can tell you that these wines were mind blowing 10 years ago.
10 years. Yeah, I mean,
So
my dad still talks about Louis Martini, Mountain, Barbera.
Wines, yes.
Well, and Danielle, maybe talk about that for a second from the chemistry side of it, because I alluded to it when I talked about the high pH or low pH from the high elevation grapes. But is that what it is? How do we get those pHs? What do you see from the juice coming in, and young wines that you get to make from the Moon Mountain District?
Yeah,
I
would say
make them age-worthy.
Normally, and this is kind of true of the Sonoma side of things, just that beautiful marine influence that we get that gives us those huge diurnal shifts, keeps temperatures cooler at night, which helps us hold on to our acids in the grapes for longer. Now that also means we have to hang the fruit a little bit longer than our Napa counterparts, but if we can get that hang time and get those tannins and that flavor development and that ripeness, then super.
Don't skip
super
the Moon
beautiful.
Hollows though too. Well, seriously, let's start with the Grenache though, right? Rather before we go to the cab.
I'm sure it also has to do with the mountain soils and the igneous rock and the vine needing to really root down lower to get to the water sources.
Right.
That I think helps give us that velvety, beautiful texture. So,
how different is the soil up there? Dramatically different from anywhere else.
Well,
and I mean, it's all come down off the one mountain. So.
Yeah, but it's also dramatically different at different vineyards.
Right.
Okay.
You know,
let's get into that.
I mean, even at Rapri or Moon Mountain, there are 8 different, completely different soil types. And I mean, probably more than that. But I mean, even being up there, you see the change in the color of the soil. I mean, there's purple
texture,
soil
right.
up there.
Yeah. John, it does all sort of emanate from one mountain or one mountain range. And this is one of the and maybe we'll ask Christophe to dig into this a minute and sort of the challenge of it. One of the sort of interesting things about the Moon Mountain District is it represents geologically multiple different events that created the soils, whether it's uplift or eruptions, that built the mountain. So you go to one property and you get 8 different soil types. They're all volcanic soil types.
Each block is different.
But each block is different. There's the red soil, there's the purple soil, there's the ashy soil, there's just the giant piles of basalt.
Yeah.
That fascinates me how, from one source, literally from one source.
One mountain.
It all came down and either has separated by itself into red clay and shale and whatever,
And Christophe, does that create a challenge for Moon Mountain District producers? Because there's such variability as far as both soil types and exposures and elevations. Do you think that and we see it. I mean, the wines from Moon Hollow or Simons or Cayman are totally different from the wines from Trinity Ridge and further north.
It's
as far as sort of like the congruousness of the AVA. Does that make sense?
It's certainly a challenge.
Yeah.
Because the plant, the vine, doesn't have the same capacity to grow on these different soils. And yes, we all have the same volcanic soils, but there are so many variations and differences, as you said. But that challenge, to me, makes the signature of the place, because that struggle made the vine producing smaller berries just to protect herself from the fruit. So you have now a ratio of water that is different than in other places where the vine is growing. So the skin is a little stronger. The cool nights, I mean, when I remember the harvest, when I go up the mountain and then suddenly you see the temperature dropping down. I mean, in October, it's 49 degrees in the morning when the pickers coming. So the night are super cool. The day is warm, and now you have a hanging time that is fascinating, that creates that amazing balance of freshness, acidity, harmony. So yes, though then the challenge is because I was lucky to start the project of Moon Hollow when the vineyard was replanted from the existing vineyard. So then now on that idea of analyzing the soil, what is going to come out from here, which block will be suitable for which varietal. And I'm going to take a shortcut to go right away to the white varietal that was planted. So I think there is no way we could have planted Chardonnay on that spot because it's hash that looks like concrete. And now after 10 years, you still see bonsais on the vines, and there's no way they've been planted in the same time than the cabs on the other side. Yes, they were, but they're so struggling so much to grow, then you could not have a tasteless Chardonnay. So the guess was Sauvignon Blanc and a small block of Viognier. The Viognier being a distraction for the birds, by the way. That's not a challenge, but
the bird share. There's the angel share. There's the devil share. There's the red-winged blackbird share.
That white ashy soil that like greeted the white varietal of the Sauvignon Blanc and the Viognier is absolutely fantastic on the growing of that varietal because it refrains a little bit the aromatic strength of Sauvignon Blanc. And now you have a white wine that is almost like a volcanic signature, like Assyrtiko from Greece. There is a lot of freshness. It's naturally 13% when you have full phenolic ripeness. It's over 6 grams of acidity. The pH is 3.2 naturally on September. So that's a beauty, but it's a beauty from a struggle. Right. On the character, and I think it defines the Moon Mountain.
I found a quote online of some guy named Couturi, Enterprise Vineyards.
I don't know if you pronounced that right. We'll have to check on that in post-production.
The complexity of the terroir of the Moon Mountain District is reflected in the complexity of the wines produced from the grapes grown within these mountains. From the brilliant red soils of the northern and central areas to the razor-sharp basaltic lava flows, this illustration of the unique terroir expresses a true sense of place.
That doesn't sound like something he would say.
Well,
those complete sentences. That was well formulated.
How would he say it?
I think I wrote that for him.
You remember writing that press release for the...
It's possible.
Yeah.
But the beauty of a wine is to be unique.
Right.
And only the soil can make the ultimate difference. I mean, a winemaker has talent, the many factors, but the soil is going to be the signature at the end of it. And if there was no difference, we would drink the same wine. There is no sense. Yeah. So yes, the place is the ultimate signature, and has been recognized in 2013 with the AVA because that's a specific location on a high elevation, on struggle for the vine, and therefore making small berries and concentrated wines with energy and vibrancy and freshness and acidity.
Well, that's the two wines that we have in front of us right now. One is from Lasseter, Trinity Ridge
Sauvignon Blanc from 2021.
Tell us about that, because they both, and the Grenache that you poured, Christophe, they both have that. But let's start with talking about the Sauvignon Blanc for a second, kind of what you did making it, and you know, it does. It's not the Moon Hollow one that Christophe was talking about, but it is restrained. It is, has this sort of like signature of those, more lean white wines. Really interesting. Talk about it a little bit, Danielle.
So this is one of my favorite white wines that I've ever made. Really, really love this one.
Hudson and Grandma looting the 16600 tie-dye collection. All of a sudden you walk in, there's no customers here. And we're like, wow, we lost shirts today. How'd that happen? If the microphone didn't pick that up, we left. Grandma wrote a note. She wrote a note to Jasmine and the inventory team. Hudson went shopping. Yeah. Owner's prerogative. And he got a pen. Pens are free. Sorry, Danielle.
That's okay. So I just try and
this is 21, you said?
2021, yeah. Okay. So we have we have the Phelps and the Arroyo clone up there, and I think it's like 75-25. And we just basically harvest it all at one time. I try and get that pick just right. I think 2021 we pretty much nailed it. And we bring it in the winery and let it actually native ferment. So, and then I try and do about 30% new oak on it.
Would not have guessed that at all.
And no mallow.
Yeah. Okay.
Which I think keeps that freshness that I really enjoy in Sauv Blanc white wines. And I just think that the mountain fruit, it really complements it. So, and we also use these funny looking egg barrels that from Vicard that are based on the Fibonacci sequence. Which is the golden ratio, which is, the spiral form that's found in nature with shells or Romanesco. And it's basically, I don't know if it's a gimmick, but it really works. It gives the wines really gorgeous mouthfeel.
So these are barrels that are shaped like an egg.
They're wooden barrels. And if you look at them from the front, they look like they're shaped like an egg standing on the the lower part of the egg, or the bigger part of the egg, and then they're long.
Oh, so so it's got staves like a normal barrel, it's just sort of like a different shape.
And it's supposed to encourage natural mixing during fermentation. And then, so the white is native fermented in barrel. It's aged sur lees, and then we batonnage for a couple of months.
I've never seen these barrels before. You mentioned them. I just looked them up. They're very cool.
They're very cool.
I mean, this is
No, those are not them.
Those are not.
No,
Those are cool though too.
Yeah,
those are hard,
egg-shaped
to get and
fermenters.
expensive. But
egg-shaped fermenters, cool. All right.
they're sort of just like, if you you think of like a normal barrel, John, as if you look at it on the end, it's round,
Yeah.
this
and then
is shaped like an egg.
From the other direction.
If you're looking at it head on.
Okay, like
yeah.
a Toblerone bar.
Yeah.
exactly.
Exactly, like a Toblerone bar, but an egg shape.
You'd line up 12 of them. There you go.
Well, it's the only thing I know that's that angle from the side.
Yeah, so that's this beautiful white wine that Trinity Ridge produced.
That's great. I don't think I'd actually. Maybe I tasted it last year at the event, but I don't remember.
Yeah, we were pouring it last year on the event. It probably had just been bottled, and I was so excited that I brought it and kept it under the table.
Well, for all that new oak, I really don't taste. It's not oaky.
I didn't pick any of these like vanilla taste from the oak or caramel or custard. I really was at first taken by the vibrancy and the energy of the wine, the freshness, which is that's beautiful when you have that level of acidity on that climate. That makes the wine. You want another glass, basically.
Totally.
Yes, you finish your glass, you say, well, here.
Especially as we finally start to warm up around here. It's going to be 90 degrees this weekend. This is good wine for that weather.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yep.
Decent cans at home for the back patio, man.
Cans of, you really want to kill Phil Coturri. Just cans of Moon Mountain District Sauvignon Blanc. Maybe put a bag in box.
Why not?
Christophe, talk about the Grenache a little bit. Also 2021.
2021 Grenache is the one we are sharing now.
This is Moon Hollow?
And Moon Hollow estate certified organic farming vineyard, thanks to Phil's team and philosophy. Anyway, so the Grenache. The Grenache part of the vineyard was planted on a out of any consideration, out of the fun. That is, what can we do in this mountain? Cab, okay, Pinot is historical, and then they are obviously on the west coast, southern Paso Robles area, some with the Rhone Rangers things, but there is this history of Grenache, Mourvèdre, Syrah style Rhone blends, and of course I was jumping from the chair when Phil said, we should plant a little block of Grenache, Mourvèdre, Syrah, make it a little GSM and proprietary red. And I was like, containing my joy, because I'm not the owner, I'm not the one putting the resources in. But yes, that's a good, very good project. So of course, the Grenache now is, the cuttings were sourced from the top vineyards, which originally came from the Rhone Valley. And then this Grenache is probably the varietal that on that location has taught us the most about the soil and the influence and what has the cool nights, meaning that Grenache can easily go over the ridge and be overwhelming and be too much. And that Grenache is absolutely fantastic with a little, it's about 15% of Mourvèdre on it. We could never succeed on adding the Syrah to that blend. So it's I'm going to call that the GM now. The Grenache is the GM. Of the property,
boss.
Yes,
it's the boss.
And the Syrah is singing and dancing on a separate stage. But so the Grenache shows us patience. It takes a little longer for the roots to establish. Grenache is very generous, loves the sun. I mean, Grenache in 2022, in that heat wave, just took off the sunglasses and say, okay, send the heat, I'm ready. And it's always the last to be harvested. The phenolic ripeness is not there. So you have to wait, you have to be patient, the fruit is under the canopy, protected on the shadow. So, and you end up with a wine still with energy, high alcohol, sure, but you don't feel it on the taste. And the Mourvèdre is adding up on the backbone on the building. So Grenache is you can't mess up with Grenache like with Pinot. You know, you make it too big of a Pinot, I don't think it's drinkable. You make it too weak of a Pinot, you can't drink it either. Grenache, it's the same. It has to be harmonious to be delightful, and it succeed on that area.
What strikes me about this wine, I mean, a bunch of things, but the length, and that there's this like the finish builds to sort of this explosion of flavor at the end that, you know, we're always looking for in wine. You know, it's got all the upfront, it's there, it's fruit, but it just keeps going,
and you can see through. It's light.
It's light.
Almost,
it's lifted, but
fake light,
but long. Yeah,
Beautiful stuff.
Yeah. Should we? Yeah.
It's interesting. You know, we're talking about the upcoming event, and that's what we want to get to.
Should we mention that?
Absolutely.
June 1st at Monte Rosso.
Please.
The Reach for the Moon masterclass and grand tasting event. It's really the only place on earth where you can get together and taste this many Moon Mountain District wines all at once. You know, there's 30 producers that are participating, I think, something like that. You know, it's certainly cab dominant, and we're gonna get to some great cabs and actually a surprise sort of special bonus that I pulled out of the cellar to kind of talk about the masterclass a little bit. But you know, one of the great things about the Moon Mountain District is, because of those variabilities of soil and aspect, you get to do things like really great Grenache and Syrah, and you have Hansel with the Pinot Noir and Kistler with the Chardonnay. So, you know, it's a tasting that is, you know, certainly it's, again, we're remiss not to talk about the cab, and we're going to. We have 3 of them lined up over there. 1 more here, 4 great cabs.
There are 8 people, 7 different wineries involved in this master class.
Oh, yeah.
Bedrock, Brion, Cayman, Louis Martini, Repris, Stone Edge Farms, and Winery 16600.
So, and the master class.
Are you taking barrel samples?
So yeah, it's going to be, so the Moon Mountain District appellation application, say that twice, was approved in October of 2013. And for those of you who are like political junkies like me out there in the world, if you remember, October of 2013 was one of the government shutdowns, you know, showdown between Republican Congress and President Obama. And I believe that like the last thing the government did before it shut down for like 6 weeks in October of 2013 was approve the Moon Mountain District appellation. So basically, you know, the oldest possible wines you'll see with Moon Mountain District on the label are 2011s, mostly 2012s and 2013s.
2011.
Yeah, I have a 2011 also, Zinfandel.
24 months of aging. Then
yeah, exactly. And then you bottle it or you just don't print your labels when you bottle, and then it's fine. Like some people I know at the table, me.
Let me mention a few of the.
But so let me
go ahead.
on the point on that. So for the masterclass, since it's now been 10 years since approval, we're going to do 2023 barrel samples and 2013 library wines. So that list of wineries, for Bedrock, it's probably the Monticello vineyard. You know, for Monte Rosso, for Louis Martini, for these places, you know, there's a historical legacy in the Moon Mountain District, which is one of the reasons that it was approved in the first place with Monte Rosso, with Carmenet, then Repris, with Stone Edge Farm, with Cayman, that makes it, you know, have some extra cachet. So being able to sit down again with, we haven't even said his name, not Phil Couturi, Antonio Galloni, who will be moderating that masterclass. You know, one of the true masters of the, you know, not an MW, but a master of wine, to sort of lead that tasting, is again, once in a lifetime kind of opportunity.
I mean, yes, from a consumer perspective, and somebody, can you imagine you're going to be able to taste on the same day all of these wineries? Think of it. You want to go visit them, you have to book. It's going to take you over a year to do it.
7 wineries, 10 years with the wine.
And and 30, and everybody wants to show up with their best wine.
Oh,
you know?
yeah.
So you don't want to miss that opportunity on having this access to that many wineries, that many winemaker, plus the class, plus the master class, and the celebration of the 10-year anniversary.
That's such a great point, Christophe. I mean, I know what our Moon Mountain District tasting fee is. I'm sure that, Moon Hall is about to open a tasting room. They'll have a Moon Mountain District tasting fee. I'm sure that, when you pour the Trinity Ridge wines at Lasseter, there's an added tasting fee to it. If you actually added up the tasting fees for all those wineries and how long it would take to actually get an appointment at all those wineries.
Yes.
This might be the greatest fucking deal in the wine business. I hadn't even put it in those terms. I mean, we always, when the ticket prices come out and we I'll be honest, there's a little static from the associate members. It's not a cheap event. I don't know.
Are the tickets still available, Sam?
There are tickets available to both the tasting and the masterclass.
Yeah. Okay.
And it costs money for sure. But, God, it's a great deal. When you put it in those terms, it is a fantastic deal.
I love it. Yeah. When I go to the page for prices, it says, can't find that page. So just go to Moon Mountain District AVA, Google it, Saturday, June 1st. Excellent. So
I'll find the prices. I'll find the prices while we pour some Cabernet.
Well, you sold out in 2023.
The grand tasting.
What's it?
195.
195 for the grand tasting, and then how much?
400
for the masterclass.
And the grand tasting.
So both are included.
Christophe dropping all the numbers. Okay. That's why he's an MOF. he can memorize stuff.
Master of Finance.
Master of Finance, yeah. Well, nobody in the wine business is a master of finance. Not these days, anyway.
Well, there are certainly a whole lot of people being involved in this thing.
Yeah, you got the list of participating producers? Should we just run that real quick?
Yeah, let me find it again here. So it's
not just the
hiding in here somewhere.
So Christophe is pouring our 2018 Lasseter Trinity Ridge Cabernet Sauvignon. And so the first year that Lasseter produced a wine from Trinity Ridge was 2017. So this is our second vintage.
Are you sticking around? Yeah. You want to come talk on the podcast, Max? No. My brother just heckling from the
cheap seats?
From the cheap seats.
Yeah. Well.
Telling us that there's good mogul storage on the Moon Mountain.
Be wise, Bedrock, Bialy. I'm surprised that they're coming over.
I'm sure imagine they're buying fruit from Monte Rosso would be my
Di Costanzo, Far Mountain.
Yeah.
Gagnon, GNON, Kennedy, Gale Wines, Hansel, Hill of Tara. So Danny, you'll be there.
Friend of the pod, Danny Fay.
Cayman, Kistler, Corbin, Cameron, LaRue. Lambert Ridge, Lasseter Family Wines, Liquid Sky, Louis Martini, Muscardini, Pangloss, Repris, Sojourn, Stonehenge Farm, Tycaton, and Winery 16600. Wow.
Yeah.
You're right.
Try getting an appointment at all those places on a weekend.
Two or three of those is going to take your fee right there.
Oh, yeah, totally.
And the master class, I mean, and look who you get to do it with.
Yeah.
I mean, it should be a really fun event.
So 2018.
Why don't we do a podcast up there then?
Because I'm too busy pouring wine. Maybe
I'll do it.
Okay. I'm down.
Hey.
We'll make it happen.
I'll grab you.
All right. So I know we totally interrupted you in the middle.
That's
of discussing the 2018 Cabernet. And 2018 would be the first year that Lasseter owned?
2017.
2017 was the first year that they owned.
First vintage, yeah, for the Cabernet and the Syrah. I am very partial to 2018, which is why I brought it. I think.
But why? Tell us about that. I tend to agree with you. I love 2018.
2018 was my first year there as assistant winemaker, working with Tony Biaggi making these wines. And the growing season was, not the best growing season of all time, but it was a great growing season. We had time to get the fruit ripe. We had time to, do our preferred pick date. And I just think these wines, in Trinity Ridge up on the mountain did really beautifully that year. Yeah.
I don't think and Christophe, you've been around great Cabernets from both sides of the Atlantic your whole life. I don't think of Cabernet and this acid signature in the same thought very often. The way that the sort of brightness and I think the word you used earlier, vibrance, especially in the mid palate.
Yes, certainly. This wine shows in a spectacular way all of the benefit of the hanging time of 18. At Monte Rosso, it was the latest of the harvest we've done so far in over 10 years, harvesting the Cab late October and even the Grenache early November. But yes, and that shows again that potential of the area of these cool nights and sunshine during the day that you built up on the complexity. But then it's not only luscious fruit, velvety character. You have on this wine the grip that holds everything together behind it. And I don't tell anybody in the sommelier industry, but this is a perfect wine.
Thank you.
Because you have all of the layers that builds up on that diversity, complexity, and thing. But it's holding. It's not like coating your palate. It's still holding it, and the tannins are there to have that wine. Munholo is a little sweeter side, I think, on 18, and I was like, whoa. That 18.
It's also, too, and again, this is kind of comes back to what we've been talking about the Moon Mountain District, and maybe we should try. I don't know what Cabernet you brought, but
21.
Let's Moon Hollow and Trinity Ridge, while they're both in the same appellation, are really very different parts of the appellation.
Oh yeah, right? Different aspects, different influences.
Right. The exposure that Moon Hollow has to the San Pablo Bay, the exposure that Trinity Ridge, and again, this is what makes it so interesting that Trinity Ridge has sort of to the Santa Rosa Plain and that kind of coastal influence, a little more northern exposure up there, to the sort of pure southern and southwest exposure of Moon Hollow, right?
Probably that common point is that, again, that energy, that vibrancy, this acidity, the tannins. I hope I'm not like pretentious, but I wouldn't nail on a blind a cab from Napa toward a cab from Sonoma to that specific just leftover of tannins that we can keep on the Sonoma side and on the mountain fruit particularly.
Totally, yeah. Should we dive into another cab?
Sure, yeah.
What do you got?
I brought a 16 Jammes de Bois from Moon Ridge.
Yeah, tell us about Jammes de Bois in general. For you and Dan have been on the show before, but that was a while ago.
Like 4 years ago, I think.
Time has no meaning. couple of kids in a pandemic, and who knows?
16
give us sort of the brief. What is Jammes de Bois, and then talk about this wine a little bit.
So, Jammes de Bois, I started as my personal label. My husband and I have, and our first official vintage of wine that we were able to sell was 2016. And Robert Kamen was nice enough to let me make wine in his cellar. Although he did tell me if it got in the way, he would throw it outside. So.
That doesn't sound like Uncle Bobby at all. Toss it out. That's it.
So we bought some grapes from our friend Corbin and his family vineyard, and made my first Cabernet in 2016. I really love this wine. This is my first wine where I got to call the pick. Which I really think is a winemaker's like brushstroke that they get to do on the artistry of a wine. If you're making it right and you're, really just want to show the terroir and the place of the wine and not putting too much stuff into it, then, you really only get a choice amount of things to show your signature. And so I think Pink Date is one of them.
And so for those of you who are unfamiliar with the Moonridge Vineyard, the Corbin Cameron Moonridge, it's one of, if not the highest elevation.
Well, and it has so much elevation just change
through the vineyard.
Between the vineyard.
And that is that true for so that you have like multiple blocks, or the way that you pick this?
The 16 is just one block, and it's the highest of the Cabernet blocks.
Okay.
Is that like 2,200, 2,500
Yeah,
feet?
about 2,200, I think.
And I think part of it in 16 went actually over to the Napa side, so you could call some of it Napa fruit if you wanted to sell the bottles for
there's a block that
$150
goes
extra. But
Mount Veeder. Yeah.
Well,
that's what we're here for.
it's all okay. We like Napa too.
So yeah, this and then in later years, I have actually from this higher block and then one of the lower Cabernet blocks. But this is, I think, a great example of how the mountain wine really holds on to acidity, because especially at this Moonridge Vineyard, the acids stay low, the acids stay high, the pHs stay low for a really, really long time. You're kind of waiting for that pH to come up, and sometimes it never does. And then you're just like, well, this is the wine I'm going to make.
Well, let's talk a little bit about that pick date and the criteria that you use besides your gut.
So, of course, I send it in and get Brix numbers, pH numbers, TA numbers, just to kind of see where they're at. But it's really just going out there and tasting the fruit and seeing if it has that sparkle that your dad likes to say when we're out in the vineyard. It's not sparkling yet. Which I agree with him. You're out there, you're tasting fruit week after week after week, and you're like, oh, it could be there, it's almost there. And then, if you're lucky enough to have a vintage where you really get to hang it long enough, you go out there and taste the grapes and they just taste like they're sparkling in your mouth, like they have a little twinkle in their eye. So yeah, that's how.
So it's all done by your taste.
Pretty
much.
Well, yeah.
Backed by data, but
yeah, you have to taste the wine no matter what the data says.
Right. I mean, what I've learned, especially tasting in vineyards with my dad, is the data sort of informs when you go and pay attention. When you start paying attention, based on the numbers that you're getting from the lab results. But the lab results and the way it tastes are not the same thing. And they move at different speeds and they move in different ways as, through the maturation process. So I don't know any winemaker who would go just unless your point is just to you're making wine for bulk or for, a commodity, then yeah, and you're never going to walk in the vineyard. You take the lab from the, and you call it and you bring it in because that's the day you have. And that's when you have the tank space, and it's a whole other business. But for the wines that, we get to make and taste, the lab is just the starting point,
Yeah, because none of the lab can give you the phenolic, the aromatics.
Right.
The lab gives you the acidity. The lab gives you, but you got to taste the skin, and you have to taste
absolutely,
to see that spark that Danielle was.
You have to go out there and chew on the skin and see what the tannins taste like.
It's almost for me, and
that's
I'm not
the way we pick the Grenache.
You just wait, and then you wait another 2 weeks, and then you wait a week after that, and then you pick it. It's the feel. It's the way the grape feel. The flavors are developing, but when it starts to feel right on your palate, is when things start to, reach the finish line.
So far, I don't think any technology.
We haven't gotten AI doesn't know how my tongue feels yet. James, when is AI going to know how my tongue feels? It does right now.
2050.
Yeah.
Bullshit. I don't think it does.
You licked your iPhone.
I don't. I don't lick I try and clean my iPhone every once in a while. No.
Well, you go out there, you pick as many grapes as you can get off of the bunch in your hand. You throw them in your mouth. You try and spit out a few seeds, see if they're brown, crunch them in your mouth, see if they're crunchy. What is the consistency of the flesh? Is it, snotty? Is it
glucosity?
Yeah.
Viscosity.
How does the skin separate from the flesh? Is it easy? Is it hanging on? Is it tight? And then how bitter is that skin? And then, you spit in your hand and see how red the juices that comes out, and to see if how much color you're going to get out of it.
It's a super classy.
Very classy.
Process, John. A lot of spitting.
Spitting snot.
Spitting, chewing.
Snotty spitting. Dusty, it's dirty.
But fun.
Talk about a time when James just left. Talk about a time when your iPhone gets dirty. This harvest.
Yeah.
Because it's on your hand, and then
Sticky.
and then invariably Phil Couturier calls you, and you have to pull your phone out of your pocket, and it's got grape juice and dirt stuck on it.
One of the tamer answers to that card that's, why am I sticky?
Why am I sticky? Yes.
To
Cards against humanity. Yeah. It's harvest. It's why I'm
harvest.
sticky.
Yeah.
That's why I'm
Winemaking.
Gotta like it. Well, it's so interesting that these wines are so separate from others, and they're all part of the club up at Moon Mountain. But you can taste the difference, and you can identify it.
Should we try a Moon Hollow Cabernet too while we're here?
Wow, these are coming fast.
Well, we got a lot of wine to get through, John. I know you have
I have a radio show.
to go to.
16 shows the aromatic complexity compared to the 18. Now you start
Right.
to capitalize on the aging, and it's beautiful on the different flavor profile.
That Grenache was just phenomenal.
Cap Franc.
The Moon Hollow, beautiful.
Oh, Cab Franc. No, that's great.
Yeah.
I love Cab Franc.
There's just not enough of it
Thank you.
around.
And there's not a lot of most of the Cab Franc that exists goes into Bordeaux blends, right?
Well, I mean, there's only a few vintages where Cab Franc really, really hits,
Well, 2021 is one of those vintages,
Yes,
apparently, because this is killer, Christophe. Oh.
Showing up nicely, which is same. I'm jealous because it's unfortunately the West Coast vineyards quality. I mean, in the old world, like saying France, Italy, Spain, you have to pay attention to the wine somehow. You have to go into the wine. You have to dig into it to discover. And I heard often, oh, it's too early, oh, it's too late. The beauty of the wines grown in California, sadly to say, for me, French brain, is you pop the bottle and the wine is ready to go. It's tasting ready, it delivers, and the youth is beauty. The middle age is delivering, and on the top of the aging, it's majestuous. So. That is a quality, certainly, that we just visited here with 18, 16, and now 21. Which 21 is a pretty rough, like introverted thing.
Mm-hmm.
So, but it's still delivering.
It jumps out of the bottle.
Shows the energy,
Yeah.
shows the quality, and it's absolutely gorgeous.
Was there anything bottled up there from 2020?
Not for us.
Yeah, we did
No.
a little bit.
Some, not a lot. 2020 was tough, depending on the exposure of those places where you're totally protected from the smoke, and those places where it totally blew right through. And
But we did a white. We
had to harvest. We had to harvest a little earlier than expected. We harvested mid-September instead of mid-October, so we're missing 3 weeks of hanging time of the fruit. But at least we didn't take the risk of having the smoke taint affecting the wine, which smoke taint is, I'm sorry to say, it's just the flavor profile. Why people are annoyed by that, I don't know. It's part of the vintage now, It's just something. It's not going to hurt you out of your mind and your thing.
It's not poison.
So, but yes, exactly.
But,
so 2020 we harvested. So I said, drink 2020 now. And cellar you 18, cellar you 19, have these tannins, just rest a little bit, settle up, and then the 2020 is charming to us, on the sense of we harvested, we picked before the smoke taint could affect the wine that we had in 17.
So in 17, I worked for Mark Harold, and so I subsequently worked for Moon Hollow,
Right.
because Mark Harold makes Moon Hollow, and I remember it was the Saturday before the fires. Mark called the pick for the entire vineyard, so Moon Hollow got to
20 acres. 20 acres.
Their 2017 fruit, it was that Monday that the fire started.
Yes,
which was crazy.
Yeah,
which was crazy.
And Mark decided.
Got it out.
I mean, basically, all that was left was probably Cab and Grenache.
Yes, exactly. I mean,
because the fires were late, so anything that came in,
and it was an early year.
Yeah,
wasn't that in October?
The fire was October
6th or 9th.
October,
I think 6th,
7th or 8th.
Yeah.
The harvest day was October 6th. That Saturday.
Okay.
And it was early October, which in a normal year would have meant most of the fruit was still hanging, but because it had been such a warm summer,
yes,
and an early bud break, most of the fruit was off. So there was some fruit that came in that was still on. There was the Simon's Cabernet was still hanging, Muchos Piedras was still hanging, but most of it was off in 17.
But the decision from Mark came from a direction we've decided together. We were walking this vineyard on the Wednesday, and Mark say, "Okay, what do you think we should harvest this vineyard?" And I said, "Listen, the vineyard is pretty young. I would love to co-ferment everything. I don't think it's the time to do block by block. Have you a fermenting tank large enough for fermenting everything?
Because at that time the vines were 3-4 years old.
They were 4 years old.
Yeah.
So, and then he said, "Okay, I'll pick you first. That's Phil. I pick you first on Saturday, and so it's all in." And I like,
yeah. And I was at that pick.
Is that why on Friday he convinced me to wait till Monday?
Probably.
Man,
which is so funny for Mark because anytime you ask Mark if something should hang longer,
he says yes.
Oh yeah, yes. Yeah. No, but the decision was made to clear it all at the same time, and it saved the smoke taint, and we had smoke taint on the Grenache, which I can share with you. Please come anytime. I'll show you the 17 now with some age that smoke taint with Grenache is integrating in the wine. And it's part of the flavor profile. And I swear you won't be able to say it was.
I would be interested in tasting that.
That'd be a good experiment. Yeah. We're like when you're at a restaurant too long, and the one server comes up to you and says,
"You don't have a house."
I'm going. Yeah, exactly. I'm going. Go get out of here.
Go home.
I'm shifting out, but you got a new server now. We just
feel weird because you've been there for 4 hours.
Yeah, you're like
5-star restaurant. And you only had a coffee,
right? And you bring us a bottle of wine.
I'm writing my novel.
Right. We changed producers. John is stepping out to go to his radio show. We got the B squad, the J squad, J quad.
I'm eating
Jeffrey
almonds.
James Jr. Eating almonds on.
It's ASMR time here. Everybody get real close to the mic.
Yeah, Cap Franc.
The Cap Franc. I mean,
really
it's like
delicious.
you just crushed the grape.
Oh yeah, no, it's got.
good.
It's.
So
I mean,
good.
it's
You
gonna
just
last
crunch
forever.
the skin, and you have that much of that fruit, and
But the
violet,
the violet.
red currant. Oh my god!
Yeah, no, it's like classically Cab Franc with the classic Moon Mountain District signature of texture and acid structure and tannin.
Great wine.
Yeah, good job, guys.
Well,
Good job, Phil. I guess whoever you are and wherever you are.
Feels more of an idea than a person.
Exactly. It's like Batman.
well, that's when you reach the stage of okay, you're special, Yeah.
Special.
Should we taste some Syrah or should we go to the 13 Cab Corvin here?
Let's do the Cab Corvin.
Okay.
Because that Syrah is going to take your palate over.
Oh, you have it. Okay.
Yeah. James is here for the wine. He hasn't said it. He's like mumbled through some almonds into the microphone and is just pointing to glasses.
I was making a lip smacking sound. Also, to be clear, I was sitting over at the picnic table drinking all of the wine that's sitting there before I came
Perfect.
here. That's why I needed almonds.
So what I'm corvining right now is our 16600's first. I'm gonna hand me a glass, Danielle. First Moon Mountain District Cabernet. So this is 2013 from the Simon's Vineyard.
And the Simon's Vineyard is below Cayman. Oh yeah, I remember now.
John showed back up. Radio show, Schmadio show. I'm here for the 13.
That's another vineyard that Phil sees from his window, dining room window.
Exactly.
Yeah. So he better want to have a great landscape in front of his window. Yeah, he's taking care of this thing.
It's the interesting thing about the Simon's Vineyard. We haven't talked a ton about the climate of the Moon Mountain District, but this is in a place where we pick late. This is the place we pick last. It's down in this. It's not Moon Hollow. It's below Moon Hollow. It's in the hollow of Moon Hollow. It's down in the bottom of this sort of volcanic bowl. The sun, when the sun is shining on Cayman and Moon Hollow and Rapri, it hasn't hit Simon's Vineyard yet. And when the shadow of, the ridge in front of it in Monte Rosso hits Simon's Vineyard, Moon Hollow and Cayman are still in the sunshine. So it's the same soil. It's that insane pile of fractured, razor sharp is what Phil said in my quote that I wrote for him. Razor sharp basaltic rock, but with this little pond next to it and that sort of just shorter day, a little bit cooler growing site.
You don't get cooked by the sunset, and you don't get right away the sunrise. So that's somehow it's an advantage now as well on keeping the freshness.
And there'll be mornings where, and you can see this from my parents' house so perfectly, where the fog will come into the valley and push up against, the sort of the foot of the Mayacamas, the toe of the Mayacamas, which is the end of the Moon Mountain District, but wrap around up the Agua Caliente Canyon and actually reach this vineyard where everywhere else in the Moon Mountain District, including like Hansel and stuff, would still be in the sunshine.
You can also tell, as a guy who spends a lot of time wandering around all these vineyards taking photos, the cover crop there comes later and lasts longer. Like the flowers and stuff. I think that's where we last year went out. We were like, oh, crap.
It was like
we forgot to take pictures of us frolicking in the flowers.
Right.
And that was the spot.
That was the spot. Totally. And this 13, it's the first. I corvied it before we started the show, and it was a little tighter than it is now. It's starting to sort of open up a little bit. 11-year-old Moon Mountain District Cabernet.
Let's talk about the difficult vintages, what is named as, so like 2011. We bottled 2011 Moon Hollow as it was the older vineyard of the property before we replanted it.
Right.
To me, it's a gorgeous wine.
One of supposedly the toughest vintage,
and
universally panned out the gate by the critics.
But now you have, of course, you have a wine that misses this generous climate signature. You don't have the luscious and the heat, but the wine is holding it amazingly well.
Right.
And this is, again, the acidity that holds the things and the tannins. So 2010, 2011, there were these vintages that were like cold, very cold, late summer, difficulties and things. And there is another detail that I wanted to share with you is, so I live in Sonoma, the town on 5th Street, and I am the happy gardener. I have a few raised beds, and I grow my vegetables, and I want to be the first to have the new potatoes. I mean, of the year. I want to first to have my green beans growing well. There is something I still not understand is my greens are suffering from the frost on late February, early March.
Right.
Well, the vineyard and the cover crop, the fava beans, the peas, none of them are touched by the frost.
Right.
The mountain, believe it or not, doesn't suffer from that frost that go down the valley.
But all that cold air sinks
This
right
is
down,
impressive
down the Montini slope to your house.
Yes, but this is this has a strong influence on bud break time.
Yeah, and that the length of the growing season.
Exactly.
You get a little
early bud break and the hanging time for for the fruit until the harvest is what makes the phenolic ripeness the most beautiful.
No, I think that's a great point. Some of the earliest bud breaks for the latest harvests. And, even if it's a matter of a few days or a few weeks on either end of that, it makes a huge difference in the wine. When the MOF Somm isn't spitting the wine out and is just, this is when we need this to be a video podcast.
What is that?
Because there's thousands of words to describe those facial expressions.
That was pretty amazing.
Yeah.
You come to June 1st, Reach for the Moon, you're going to taste many of the 13 that are going to be the celebration of the 10 years. So you don't miss that.
Yeah, 13 is, in the same way we talked earlier about the Judgment of Paris. Judgment of Paris, one of the reasons it worked out so well is the wines that they were tasting in 1976. The 74s it was a great vintage. 13 to start the Moon Mountain District in the 2013 vintage as one of those just sort of like shoe-ins of life. 13 was a great vintage. It was, the beginning of the drought, but it wasn't so dry. It has more structure and length and mid palate than 2012, which was sort of a universally loved vintage. But I think, and I've seen that, 13 was one of the first, vintages we had 16600 like really in earnest, as far as, production. Those wines took a while to come out of their shell. 13's young were pretty tightly wound and not really expressive.
And specifically coming out of 12, that was very charming,
right?
Somehow.
Just
so,
totally, just, yeah. Again, with the video podcast, where is that?
I'm ready when you are. Let's do this. I was actually, I don't know if people could hear me chortling in the background. I was laughing about something totally off subject here, but it's the fact that up until like 2011, a couple years after I met your Uncle Tony and he got me into wine, I thought that the Martha's Vineyard wine came from Martha's Vineyard. I remember going there looking for, I was like, there's no fucking...
Are there any
vines?
Are there any vineyards on Martha's Vineyard?
Not that grow wine. Actually, there's probably a couple of like weird vanity vineyards that are like, we grow Riesling, but it's probably hot trash.
Right.
It's like wine from...
Why?
Table grape.
Why do they call Martha's Vineyard Martha's Vineyard? Mr. Massachusetts.
I used to know this. It has something to do with a ship captain's wife, but I can't.
All right, fair enough. All right. Doesn't everything have to do with the ship captain's wife?
I'm going to guess it's probably some sort of vaguely racist or sexist story. We shouldn't repeat it here.
Yeah, probably. It's probably safe
beep, 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 beep. Island, beep. Whale fat, beep.
I mean, though now 2013 shows the...
That's why he's a professional.
MOF Somm.
That aging beauty on the wine that now builds the complexity of the aromatic profile. This 2013 is absolutely gorgeous on delivering. So this one is triggering your senses like poof, 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 poof. It's coming out from everywhere. Beautiful.
It has...
What an enjoyment.
One of the, for me, more elusive flavor profiles of Cabernet, which is the chocolatey, the cocoa, without being sweet, without being like chocolatey.
Yeah.
It like evokes chocolate.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I don't think that was there when it was young. I think that that's something that's developed with age. I'm excited based on tasting this. We have 35 bottles left of this because we just carved into this one.
34. There's one in my car.
No, there's not. Take it out before it warms up. I think that, after the tasting and masterclass on June 1st, we'll have about a case and a half of it left. And I don't think I'm going to let anybody taste it after that. This is going all into the cellar.
The wine delivers
deep in the library.
It's really generously coming out. A lot of flavors and still a grape. You're not building on sweetness and things. That's still a nice grape for talent, which makes 13 that signature, even compared to 12 that was against charming, 14 balance, and 15 like shattering on the grapes and little harsh.
Right.
13 is underestimated.
It's right in that sort of sweet spot of between the
I think we have in 21 some of the background of talents of a similar setup.
Yeah, I agree. Well, Moon Mountain District. It's a great place to be.
Syrah?
Syrah. Let's have some Syrah. Let's close it out with Syrah, especially since we excluded James, unfortunately. But
I drank some over there.
No. We're on the
Thank you.
coming back from, and we'll give a shout out to our friends at Hospice Tyrone. Really, what was a fantastic Syrah experience, getting to taste. Christophe and Danielle and I, along with a few others, Morgan Twain Peterson, MW, got to go and taste with Christophe Barone, the Bionic Frog, and his wines. But really, all those rocks Syrahs and the Syrah of Walla Walla Valley up at Hospice Tyrone last week or 2 weeks ago. So I'm feeling Syrah in general. So I'm excited to try these. This is the Lasseter 2019
Trinity Ridge Lasseter Syrah. And these are clone 877 and 470.
I was just up at Trinity Ridge for the first time yesterday.
477.
It's gorgeous.
Clone 1. Hello, because it comes from Aurora Cayman.
The clone one.
It's one.
We're just
Syrah 1.
Syrah one. Robert only has clone one of everything.
Do not name it Cayman. Do not name it anything.
Cayman clone one. Clone one.
Syrah 1.
Karate clone one. Danielle, talk about Syrah, especially we're on the heels of being in Walla Walla, where they have super high pHs. Syrah in general is a higher pH grape.
Correct.
Does that then, what happens when you get into a place like the Moon Mountain District where historically, typically, pHs stay low? That's got to be a blast to play with that sort of juxtaposition with Syrah.
It's still high.
It's still high? Okay. I had a whole thing going, Danielle. I had a whole thing going. This is great, though.
No, it still gets up there. It's 3.8, between 3.8 and 4.
Okay.
With our Syrah, we like to do around 25 to 30% whole cluster. This Syrah, the Syrah off of this property. So, the Trinity Ridge property has 2 different vineyard sections. The first vineyard section, where we have the Cab and the Sauv Blanc, is where you first drive into the property, and that's kind of up high, good sun exposure. And then we have a back bowl, and in that back bowl we have this Syrah. So you still get the nice heat that's up there, but I think in the bowl it stays cooler for longer.
It's a pretty big drop from like where those cab vines are down to where the Syrah
as
is.
A vineyard intern, I
It's a
used to
shitty
hike it,
walk,
because it's actually a better walk than it is a drive.
That's true. The road is sketchy.
The walk is takes less time.
But is that the dirt road that Max built?
I
was up there with Nellie yesterday morning, and she was driving one of the Enterprise Vineyards trucks on that dirt road that connects the vineyards.
Oh, that's between Trinity Ridge and the Nunnery.
53 now. I was 48 when I started.
Yeah, totally. Those roads are they take a couple years off. Imagine what they do to the trucks. That's why the Enterprise Vineyard trucks are amazingly good shape considering the roads that we make them drive down.
But there's some sort of magic in this vineyard that somehow takes a little bit of a piece of Côte Rôtie and just kind of puts it in California, I think.
Yeah. Do you do any co-fermented Viognier or anything
Nope,
with this?
we don't do that. We don't have Viognier. Yeah, so no, it's just a little bit of whole cluster, but yeah.
The texture of it again.
Syrah to me is you close your eyes and now you're chewing on a blueberry muffin. This is like fresh baked pastry with the cooked just heated blackberry fruit, or it is like a forêt de Brocéliande wild fruit yogurt. There's this kind of creamy thing on Syrah, and that for a 19 on a blind I would probably have set it to 21 because it's so much still youth into the wine that is
the Trinity Ridge it holds on to that youthfulness for
and violet this violet candy when you just candied the flower itself, and it just fixed the the aromas with the sugar. It's beautiful.
So I couldn't decide which vintage to bring. So the 18 has more of that kind of bacon fatty flavor, whereas this is a little bit more fruit forward.
So what's the current release at Lasseter right now? The 21 or the 19?
Oh, I have no idea.
I have no idea. Jennifer Freebrand, where are you on the info here? You could probably get them both if you go there.
Yeah, I think that probably pouring the 18, but don't quote me on that.
Okay.
I know if you wanted to do the cab specific tasting, we have a cab specific tasting. We'll taste both the 18 and the 19 Trinity Ridge cab and the 18 and the 19 Reminiscence.
Okay, and the Reminiscence are the home property. The
Juicy Creek, the Glen Ellen Bench.
Should we
to the beauty, or I would call that generosity of Lasseter Estate, when the project has been built on doing the right thing or putting all of the resources to do the thing, is they have a library of vintages available. And you can go there and taste the same varietal with few different vintage signature style, which is very educative or very informative for if you want to cellar your wines. You can do that. It's an amazing tasting experience. If you have one place to visit when you come to Sonoma, if you combine the vineyard view, the quality of the grading, and the quality of the wine, you have to go to Lasseter. I cannot beat that even with Monte Rosso.
Thank you.
Ask for moose when you get there.
Yeah, and Syrah. So Syrah. So the goal when we designed this vineyard with philosophy at Moon Hollow, so the idea was to do a GSM, and we tasted the Grenache and we said, okay, now the Grenache is the GM, but the Grenache needs a little bit of attention. Funny enough, I had a group visiting yesterday, and the customers are trying the wines, and they look at me after the Syrah and they say, "Oh, Syrah is a better wine than Grenache." And I look at him and I said, "Well, technically, you're unfortunately right. Why is Syrah a better wine than Grenache? Because I think
I disagree.
the beauty. Well, I'm happy for the discussion and the arguments. But so Grenache, I think, needs to catch your attention, and it's such a delicate grape. I think Syrah has a way better, higher genetic to trigger your senses. And if you measure the emotion, and if you measure the pleasure you have enjoying a wine by the amount of electric signals that your senses are going to have, Syrah triggers more emotions, physical emotions than mental emotions than Grenache. Grenache, you have to have already access to wine and translate wine and read wine. Syrah, you don't have a clue of what wine is. You have a glass of Syrah, and you fall in love with wine.
I can see that.
That was the argument.
It's easier.
On the sense of triggering the emotions, Syrah has a better potential than Grenache.
You have a much better connection to wine than I do. If wine made me feel this way, I would never leave the warehouse.
I agree with you. I mean, I would have said
technically, Syrah is a better wine.
Before I was a winemaker. Before I was a winemaker.
I said technical criteria, ladies and gentlemen.
Welcome to the show.
Hey.
We haven't talked about you at all this entire time.
No. I mean, nobody knows.
I understand what you're saying about Syrah, but I don't think one is better than the other.
Well,
I think subjectively, after being a winemaker and working with both grapes, it brings me more pleasure to work with and drink Grenache.
Oh, I mean, I won't give Grenache against anything else. But
I like the way you're reading the room.
Story.
Multifaceted.
Yeah,
but as you said, one is more intellectual, one is more physical.
Yes.
We're all into physicality.
Phil's on his fourth wine tasting of the day.
I just tasted 25.
It's worth noting Phil rolled up on
You
a
did.
six pack.
You did. I know you're here talking about.
17 and Moon Hollow was easy for you. Huh?
17 with Moon Hollow was easy. But this was pretty amazing.
Yeah, we are here talking Moon Mountain District. Yeah. Phil just got back from tasting 25 Oakville Ranch.
Yeah.
Where everybody tasted Cabernet and talked about Grenache, I hope.
Well, they did. I right in the middle of it, I poured the Auto-Tet.
Yeah.
The 21, and then the barrel sample
of the 23.
And it just stopped everybody, because after coming through all that mental, what do you want to call it?
Wait, we have the gesture. We'll keep it for us, okay?
Of Cabernet.
Thank God it's not a video podcast.
We're live.
The mental. I'm trying to remember the line that they talk about Jabberwocky, but it's talking all about Cabernet and blah blah blah. The Grenache was just a relief, and there was a deep, because there's nothing like a great Grenache. But it was all really good ones. And Cab Franc.
Cab Franc. Oh yeah, you got to taste the 2021
2021
Moon Hollow Cab Franc. Yeah.
Well, you know, to get back to
turn the camera back on.
To be back to Moon Mountain District, Cabernet Franc should never be grown in the valley. It's a hillside vineyard. It's a hillside variety, and it wants to be a little bit restrictive, but it takes on the true nuances of what Cab Franc wants to be. It wants to struggle a little bit.
We've talked about struggle.
Yeah, and
we did good.
Signature.
I look at Cab Franc. It's definitely the feminine aspect of Cabernet. Cabernet is totally disheveled. Cab Franc is so orderly. It's a little bit lighter colored, the leaf, and it really grows within control. That's not Cab Franc.
This is Syrah. We'll go backwards with you. We've been here. This
is really nice.
The 13 is showing really well. I'm excited.
The 13 is delicious.
The 13 Moon Mountain tasting. Be there or be square.
Well, I mean, that's what we were one of the things we talked about.
No, I'm not going to blend Cabernet with it.
Is, it's $400 for the masterclass and grand tasting
and the grand tasting all day pass
and
all day pass.
To actually go out and find those wines on your own and get appointments at all the wineries on your own would take a year and thousands of dollars. So it is dollar for dollar, pound for pound, a screaming deal.
It is, because you're tasting 11-year-old Cabernets that, if this was, quote, Napa, every one of those bottles is $200 to $300 a bottle. And
on release.
Upon release.
Right.
And you're taking stuff that has been aged out of people's private stashes to share with everybody, just to show that there's no inferiority complexes that we have.
Yeah. I have a question.
Okay.
So do you get to taste those 2013s without being at the masterclass? Are people pouring those 2013s just at the grand tasting?
There might, according to.
I'm thinking if you don't pony up the cash to get the good stuff.
Well, the masterclass is also had to have Antonio Galloni lead you through the wines.
Oh,
I imagine that there'll be some of the producers who've pulled the 13s out of their cellars will have what's left on the table to pour.
Yeah.
It's one of those deals where it's get there early.
Yeah.
To get those wines if you want to get them.
Yeah.
And I think
otherwise just do the masterclass.
Do the masterclass.
In theory, out of the masterclass, you won't have access to the 13. Eh?
Right. I mean, there's like I said, we have 3 cases left, and I think that probably is about the average for these producers of what is actually left in the library.
Well, and to really taste them side by side and to give them, the intellectual time to sit and taste and think about them and to hear about the vintages from all of the growers and the winemakers. And to really hear each wine story, I think the masterclass is a great way to learn about Moon Mountain and a beautiful way to experience it.
Well, and the beauty of one of the reasons that we decided on 2013 was that's the anniversary of when we became an AVA.
Yep.
And why we became an AVA was to show the uniqueness of what Moon Mountain is. And so we're celebrating our 10th, 11th anniversary. And
10 vintages.
10 vintages.
Right.
Because the 11th.
Because we can't pour people 24s yet.
No, I can do it in my mind.
Yeah, exactly.
But, you know, there's a reason why we dedicated, you know, probably 10 years in getting this done, is to differentiate to celebrate and differentiate what goes on the Moon Mountain District. You know, we're part of Sonoma Valley. We're part of Sonoma County. You can't deny your origins. But we are, in order to have a valley, you have to have two mountain ranges. And we're celebrating the Moon Mountain side of it.
Yeah.
Back to the future on this 21. You can't he's whispering. No whispering. No secrets on the podcast.
Sorry.
No, the 21 though.
Why is she blushing?
Because
He's complimenting my wine.
the highly decorated sommelier is complimenting her wines. Wouldn't you would blush too? I'm blushing just
I
thinking
blush
about
every
it.
time a Frenchman whispers in my ears.
Is there like a citrus note on this Syrah that I'm picking up? There's some freshness and some like almost minty.
Beautiful aroma.
It's just smells great. I haven't even tasted it yet.
Taste it?
I love a little bit of the orange peel or blood orange.
Yeah, there's a little orange peel thing happening. Yeah.
We just tasted the Lasseter Syrah 19 and the Monte Rosso Syrah is the 2021. I would, if I have the two wines in a blind, I'll never guess that there is 2 years difference. The 19 Syrah Lasseter is keeping the youth, keeping the blueberry that we were discussing about, the licorice part.
Yeah.
And yes, the Syrah 21 Monte has kind of the same genetic signature of the Syrah, but that's
Definitely a different flavor profile.
Yeah.
Well, you know, 19 was an incredible vintage because of the weather pattern that occurred when we had that a cold May like we're having now. We had that big rainstorm in the middle of May, and then on the summer solstice we hit 100 degrees, and you know we get some heat, and there was a lushness in the berries, and there's a freshness that they'll be able to maintain. 21 was a drought year. Yeah, so 21 is also, I think, was an incredible year. But we'll see how things develop. And there's dead air.
I was when 2021 happened, I remember after, you know, when first tasting the wines, you know, just being like really concerned and like, I don't know. I wouldn't know if I would say upset, but it shows my greenness of how young I am as a winemaker with only a decade on my belt, is that they're not now turning out to be fabulous. So, you know, you just got to give the wine some time to come into their own. And every growing vintage is different. And sometimes you have challenges. And 2021 was one of our challenging vintages, not the most challenging, not 22, but, you know, it really is turning out to be beautiful. And you just have to give the wine a little time to find itself.
Which brings us to, we should be finding all of you on June 1st at the Moon Mountain District. Reach for the Moon tasting.
Do we just shoot the moon?
Reach for the moon.
Reach for the moon.
Reach.
Phil, your insistence on not knowing the name of this fills me with great joy.
As founding board member, Phil
You don't
Kaduri.
give a theme song now.
Shoot the moon.
Should I play the theme song?
Mountains of the Moon?
Mountains of
Your
the moon.
personal theme song.
Reach for the moon.
All right, reach for the moon. June 1st at Monte Rosso. Go to Moon Mountain District.
Process why.
I don't know.
It's so bad.
Accounting for taste amongst this group.
Yeah. Fortunately, our taste in wine is better than our taste in music.
Listen, we buy what we can afford.
No,
And that's the song we
let
get.
people know what's going on.
Yeah.
First, that's the
Yep.
So-
we told them many wineries you can nail in one day years of
Historic
research
Monte
to
Rosso vineyard.
reach out to the wineries and taste these wines.
You're tasting history. You're tasting the history of the development of a premier AVA that has only been around since 1890.
Right.
You know, but it's to see all these different wines in one spot, and you know the great thing about going to a grand tasting, I guarantee every winery there will have a bottle under the table
Something else.
of something else from Moon Mountain District, just to entice you.
Sweeten the pot a little bit. All right. So,
Yep.
again, June 1st, masterclass starts at 9 a.m. So it's 9 to 3. You park in the valley. Shuttle will take you up the mountain to Moon Mountain to Monte Rosso.
Good food. Good.
Great food.
Good.
Vineyard tours.
Vineyard tour masterclass. Grand tasting from 12 to 3 with all the wineries we've talked about. Ticket
Meet the
prices.
Winemakers Pod people in person, IRL.
You
Sam will-
are
You have the-
going to be in the postcard. You are going to be
You'll be in the
picture.
postcard.
You're going to end up in the postcard and taste.
Plus a commemorative map of the Moon Mountain District and the
Right.
and
Calling out the 9 vineyards in the.
Massagnati.
Pretty close.
That's an incredible cartographer.
And again, it's $250 for the grand tasting, $400 for the masterclass. Do the masterclass. $400.
55 for the grand tasting.
$195. It says $250 on the website. Maybe
Okay.
email Christophe Tassan for the
Tassan is he's
special prices.
subsidized. Christophe Tassan is $50.05 for
give you the
every
Moon Hollow
person
discount.
who
The Moon Hollow
emails
discount.
him now. That's Christophe at Moon Hollow.
on the website. $250. Less if you talk to Christophe.
with an accent.
Christophe. So that, and you go to moonmountaindistrict.org for all that information.
No, it's going to be a wonderful tasting, full of surprises.
Yeah.
And you know, again, we're making history.
Yeah, we're tasting history in a historical place, making history. It's really, we talked about it at sort of the beginning. There is no place where you can taste all these wines in one place like this on Earth once a year at the best. So be there, get tickets.
Trying to get all these people together is definitely hurting cats.
Yes, mountain cats, mountain
Baby
lions,
rattlesnakes.
maybe mountain lions.
Hurting
Come hang out with the mountain lions of the Moon Mountain District. There's actually probably just one or two.
and in the
The ones at Monte Rosso are big and scary.
Yeah,
in
they're all.
in the Mayacamas, which means the Hollow of the Lion.
It does mean it is the Mayacamas is the is it a Miwok word or the Pomo word
Pomo.
for the call that the mountain lion makes?
Sounds like a Led Zeppelin song.
It should be
Would that be a yowl?
a yowl.
Yeah.
I don't know.
A meow.
A meow.
Meow. All right.
Okay,
All right,
let's end this. We're making animals
Quick
now.
shout outs before we go. As we speak, our dear friend Bart Hansen is in the middle of riding 100 miles a day for 3 days.
Go, Bart, go.
On the chef cycle. Actually, they were in Sonoma Valley today. I drove past Bart while he was riding north on Arnold Drive.
This explains all the sad, sweaty men on the side of the road when I came to work.
That is exactly all the chefs who realized 300 miles is a lot. So I saw Bart, I honked, I pointed. He was deep in the endorphins of the bike ride and had no idea that I was there.
Shout out to Sam and I for not pretending we were going to do it this year because that was embarrassing.
That was embarrassing last year. All right. One more time. MoonMountainDistrict.org.
Yep.
MoonMountainDistrict.org. Be there. Look forward to seeing you.
Come say hi.
Come say hi, Christophe, Danielle. Thanks for coming by today and talking
You're
about
welcome.
it. Yeah.
Pleasure.
Phil, thanks for the cameo.
Yeah, no
Finally, you got your time on the show.
Thank you.
All right.